Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse, primarily focused in advanced illnesses. Those that would specifically qualify for either palliative care or hospice care, those are two separate services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement, an avid writer having written well over 500 articles on compassioncrossing.info, and an avid book author in the healthcare field genre. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying. After all, we are all going to die. Shouldn't we be prepared for what that process looks like? So we'll have video discussions in this channel for my fellow hospice nurses. That's going to be the topic of today's video. For my fellow holistic nurses, caregivers, family members, sometimes patients, as well as my fellow end-of-life professionals, most of them being end-of-life doulas. If these are topics that interest you, please consider subscribing below and hit the bell notification. I try to publish videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's one less. Sometimes there's videos on gardening or housing projects and so on and so forth. I hope you like this. Before we get into today's video, which is going to be talking about the book that I wrote last year, that's going to be a subject of a presentation in South Carolina next year, is Mastering Hospice Eligibility. But before we get into that topic, and let me just take one moment as I'm talking to reach for a book I should have got out first and ask you, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? I find that working in a field where grief is like your skin, if you don't have resilience, there is burnout. There's running away. There's, I can't do this anymore. It's hard. It's hard. Um, Yesterday and today, I was helping a family remotely where the one family member is extremely young. They're not pediatric, but they're an extremely young adult. There's birthdays today. And the story is heartbreaking, and for privacy reasons, I'm not going to go into that. And I'm praying, I'm trying to help with, I have an edge from a standpoint. You don't have to be a registered nurse to be an end-of-life doula, but I do have an edge that I have a background in hospice and palliative care. And so I'm able to provide some advice that others may not. And as a side note, if you're an end-of-life doula and you're like, I have this case, I really could use a nurse to talk to, please reach out. I love collaborating. Yesterday, and this is a grateful point for me, I was on the phone and I'm just looking at my notes because my short-term memory is like this. I remember the first name, Crystal Bai, B-A-I, Crystal. Crystal's the founder of Renity, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And that is an upcoming platform for end-of-life doulas, but it's geared towards end-of-life consumers. But doulas can be involved in the picture. And it has so many wonderful components. And I was on I think it was like a 45-minute Zoom call with her. And I was sharing with her because she was asking, would I mind sharing this and mind sharing that from what I've developed? And it's like, I don't mind sharing. Let's collaborate. Yeah, I live in Madison County, Kentucky. I'm working on two different breast cancer presentations, one for the community at large and one for a business networking group. So I'm doing my homework. Some of you have been watching how I shared I'm using Perplexity to do deep research and doing further research because complexity was off by 5,000 people, which in the grand scheme of things wasn't too big. But like there's 100,000 people in Madison County. Can you imagine, like right now there's only one death doula. What if 9 popped out of the woodwork and now there's 10 people? I still would have too many people. You hearing me? What if there was 100 people, 100 death doulas in Madison County? There'd still be enough. Have the mindset let's collaborate. Let's help everybody bloom and grow. So I'm grateful for Crystal, who's working with the International Dual Life Movement. One of the pluses, if you are looking for a dual school, I'm not saying they're perfect. I have issues with a class that I'm taking. I'm not going to go into the details because I've shared before. I'm into looking at what's good versus venting on certain areas. But it's like they're not perfect, but compared to everyone else out there, they are extremely thorough, and they have the goal of being the best of the best. They have the goal that if accreditation and governing bodies start happening, they're in the running immediately. Not saying, oh, give us 6 months or give us a year. So before I go too on that rabbit trail, I believe that if you build resilience, what are you grateful for? To me, gratitude's the third pillar. Forgiveness is the second pillar. Comment below if you want to know the first. I have mentioned in the past, it's not like it's a big secret. So I'm grateful for Crystal and that call, and that like I'm one of the beta testers, so to speak, for Renity. And I'm grateful for the International Life Movement that worked so that people like me who went to the International Life Movement can be beta testers. There's like life books. Anna Adams works on so many different partnerships just to try to cut either free or low cost or special deals for the students above and beyond them. Then a lot of other of the schools are trying to catch up. But I'm grateful for Crystal and the time that we spent. And I gave her some ideas, and I'm looking forward to see what comes out of that. I'm grateful for people that have been buying and reading my books. I'm grateful for, this may sound odd, I am odd, but I'm grateful for the Holy Spirit because uh, between like reading more about what people are asking for in the hospice groups and praying, it was like, gee, while CMS, we're talking hospice shortly for my fellow hospice nurses, the CMS Hope um, tool that starts this coming week, October 1st, wham, does not have specific documentation requirements. It has specific timeline for when, like certain things are done, the visits are done, but there's not a lot of documentation that you can say this is a documentation change, especially if you were doing it right the first time. But there's enough that it was like, gee, I really should update my uh, hospice documentation book, the very first book that I published. I know I should have had it right there from the beginning, but my room is small. So this is not the third edition. This is the second edition. I literally just published the third edition just days before this filming. At the time you're seeing this, I film in advance. At the time you're seeing this, the third edition of this will be available. So what the changes are, and we'll get into the main topic in a moment, but what the changes are in chapter 6 when it talks about the admission narratives and admission documentation, there was a section on the hospice item set. Well, that goes away October 1st. So there's now in the third edition a new discussion on hope, as well as some timeline, like a summary for a table for timelines. And then I added a brand new chapter. So chapter 7 became 8, 9, so on and so forth. So now it's an 11 chapter book versus 10. But chapter 7 is dedicated to hope and taking elements from the other chapters, like if compare the contrast, the negative wording, and all the other aspects, and how do you put that into your symptom management visits and the other visits that you're doing, including wording examples. So again, that is going to be available at the time that you're seeing this. And if you've already, I want to make this very clear, if you've already purchased this book, like I don't do the new editions. Here's a new edition, shell out an extra 20 and change. It is a way that I earn money, but that's not the intent. The intent is to keep the book relevant and to help you. But if you're in a position, Peter, that doesn't sound like enough for me to get the new book, but I could really use the extra stuff. I would like you to do Two things. I want you to email me and tell me that you own this and show me some kind of proof that you have the book. It might be a picture of this book in you. It could be a picture of this book in your lap. It'd be a picture on a laptop, notebook, whatever. Could be the Amazon invoice receipt, or maybe you did an Amazon review, for which I'm very grateful for. Not too many people for, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I know, because I don't always do reviews as well, and I don't buy from Amazon as much as I used to, but I'm guilty of like I have a backload of reviews to do. But if you send me proof, I'll send you the PDF document that just contains the element for chapter 6 that was replaced his, and contains the new chapter. It's not going to be fancy. It's going to be something you'll have to print out on your own. But I figure that's a way to economically do it, because if I were to give you like an author copy of the book and then charge you for shipping, we're probably talking in the $5 to $8 or $9 range, if you take into account like I'd have to recoup the credit card processing fees, blah blah blah. But getting into the meat of today, the meat of today is I want to start, and I don't know yet for whether it's going to be Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays, but I want to start a series on this. Before I go too far, I need to give special recognition. One of my friends, and my short-term memory is like this. So I could look up his full name, and I'm probably going to have trouble pronouncing one part. But Keith recommended, why am I not doing YouTube shorts or videos on this? I could do a small segment once a week or every so often. So thank you, Keith, for that. Keith, I can't say enough kind words from Keith and Celeste, Shelley, Tanya Frazier, Ed Braddock. I have so many different people, Amy York, that they buy my books. They publish. Look at this on LinkedIn or Facebook, that they're benefiting from it. I don't have enough words of thanks, and plus my memory is like this for short term. But so thank you. So Keith and I met on LinkedIn. We've not met in person yet. He's hoping to have the potential in March of next year, God willing, that him and his wife would meet me. Part of the reason for doing this is that March, I believe it's the 27th, it's 26th, 27th, last Friday in March 2026. The invitation is out there. I've accepted, but God's in charge. The stuff can change between now and then. They could change their mind. Something could happen to me, God forbid. Something can happen to the conference, God forbid. I don't know. I only know that I have this moment before you. Excuse me. But if nothing changes, I will be the first hospice nurse ever. This is the South Carolina Hospice and Palliative Care Conference. So every year they have an interdisciplinary conference. They've had doctors, they've had social workers, nurse. I don't know if they've had nurse practitioners. They've never had a hospice nurse. So I have the privilege of being the first hospice nurse, the first male hospice nurse, because I'm a guy. And the topic is going to be based on this book, in not only for interdisciplinary communication, because I do believe this book enhances the communication that the admitting nurses are always registered nurses, or they could be a nurse practitioner for a hospice provider. But I believe it enhances communication. I believe that it lessens live discharges. Shelley Henry and Adam, her husband, wow, I cannot thank you enough. I am so, like, what you do for our industry. I am just, I can't just, wow, I'm just speechless. So, and Shelley's one that will reach out to me. Hey, I've been to another agency and they have this book or that book on their table, and they're getting it for all their nurses. But here on a phrase. Shelley Henry's been doing a lot of video. She is amazing at her tips videos. but she's been, I was saw a video today, discharges, live discharges for hospice are red flags. Red flags. Discharge for failure to decline is a red flag the more that you have them. Just discharge for cause. She did a video today on cause. I actually asked her a question on that as it relates to uh, medication compliance for those that are suspected of abusing narcotics and you've tried everything. That's a separate video. But here, my belief with the understanding I'm biased. I wrote this, I'm biased. Um, but there's this. When I became a hospice nurse, I started at a Sarah Care York. That was when they were owned by Golden Living. Um, here you go, Peter, Hospice QuickFlips. And memorize it as best you can. Where the focus is your LCDs, your local coverage determinants. And they cover a handful or more, depending on your point of view, of diagnoses. Like here, memorize this. And so what would happen is I would go to do an admission. You get the clinicals. And those of you who have done admission, sometimes you don't get clinicals. Sometimes they send clinicals and you find out it was the wrong patient, like there was a HIPAA issue here. Sometimes you get the clinicals and it's right patient, but how they came up with what they put on the paper, we don't know. Or they're outdated and other things. But what if they have a diagnosis, they're being told that they believe they fit for hospice, but there's not a diagnosis that matches the LCD. There's nothing in this book, and I don't know how to word things. I'm not trying to bash it to pieces. It's what I bit my teeth on, not that I bit into it, but it's what I did admissions for years before I wrote. There has to be a better way. But the problem is when you're just looking at this, what if they have sepsis? Or when I worked for an agency, and I don't include them on my resume see my early videos on this channel, but Lifesong Hospice, hip fractures. They're admitting geriatric patients for a hip fracture. Never heard of that before. Femur fracture. Never heard of that before. Wow. Makes you think. Why are we admitting this patient? And then I would hope, it dawned on you, wham, why are we looking at the diagnosis? I'm not saying we need a primary, right? That's what Medicare requires. But why are we looking at the diagnosis when hospice is prognosis driven? So if you watch this channel, when I talk about palliative care is symptom burden driven. If the symptom burden is too much or can be too much, it's not the diagnosis and it's not the prognosis. If you go to palliative care, we're talking authentic palliative care. We're not talking hospice, we're talking palliative care. They go to palliative care, oh, you need this diagnosis and it has to mention your life limiting. I would be asking, and how is this different from hospice? Are you kidding me? This is not, yes, I'm not saying you're not palliating, but it's not authentic. But hospice is prognosis driven. It's prognosis driven. Part of the reason why this book sells, and I know we're talking about the other book, eligibility driven, same thing as like being prognosis driven. This is all about prognosis driven admissions, prognosis driven eligibility. So if you're just going off of the LCDs, number one, if they have something that there's like, we don't have an LCD for it, there's no training in this book to how to think for yourself. I'm not saying you can't learn on your own. I did. If I can do it, you could do it too. I'm not saying you have to buy my book in order to come to the epiphany that I had. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying you can't do it on your own. I'm just saying that there's already a mousetrap that's written. Here's the mousetrap, the new mousetrap. But before it's like, here's my mousetrap. I don't have an LCD for sepsis. I don't have an LCD for broken bones. There were I don't have the laundry list of some of the diagnoses that I've admitted under. And it's like, oh my, what do we do? And you're, especially the dementias where, I can't tell you how many I was told they're 60 and they're going to be, 7A by the time their first recertification comes up, or they're 60 and they're going to be a 7A, or even if they're 7A, that, oh, they are 7A and they qualify according to this book. And then you get failed to decline. I still remember my heartbreaking case in 2023. We're in the first quarter of 2023. It was, I believe it was either late February or I think it was early to mid-March 2023. I had an Alzheimer's patient at a skilled nursing facility. And I am the type of nurse that I'd be going twice a week at a minimum. I am the type of nurse that if there is a change of condition, I'm putting in a PRN for the next day for myself, and I'm letting on call to triage the entire team know. I am that type of nurse that'll spend an hour, 2 hours in a visit. And yes, I did. I never got written up, but I would be chastised frequently. Why am I be like this person over there that's in and out in less than a half hour and brags about the longest she's ever been in a visit is 45 minutes, which to me is unbelievable. She is an amazing clinician, but no, oh my, I don't even know what words to use. But here, I still remember this case where all I had for declines is they went from taking an hour to up to 2 hours to eat, and constant refocus. And maybe it was an hour and a half to 2 hours. And the medical director, that's not enough. And my gut was telling me they're still eligible, but I didn't have enough information other than that. And we discharged for failure to decline. And then just days before Easter, I'm readmitting. I'm the admitting nurse again, admitting her. And she's at the last stage of transitioning just before actively dying, and passed. It was either the day before or the day after, day of Easter. It was like around that time. And it was heartbreaking. And what do you tell the family? Like, oops, we shouldn't have discharged. So part of there's many reasons why I wrote this book, and it's just to help my fellow hospice nurses to transition, like learn or relearn, depending on your point of view, to think critically, to ask questions. So getting into the meat of today's video, and I'll try to refer to this video in future ones. I do want to give you some of the pieces. I'm not doing the tutorial view, but I may do that in future videos of this book. Just looking at chapter 4, and might get into a little bit of a couple pages of chapter 4. And I mentioned about the clinicals earlier. So how do you work with referral chain communication? And this is where you need to start training the people where you get referrals. That should be your liaison's job, but encourage your hospice team. Get in there. Like I've done this I do my best to practice what I preach. So I would tell the management team, if you want me to do a presentation with the social worker, the hospice liaison, you want me to be in an info visit, you want me dealing with advanced directives on those DNR full code issues, involve me. I've done presentations to med techs, to various different parties. And by the way, side note, I am available for public speaking and doing remote training. But by training your referral sources what to give you will be helpful. That part, by the way, is not in the book. But let's say you're getting a discharge for sepsis. Now, sepsis, and this is just reading from the book, life-threatening condition that when untreated can lead to death in as little as 12 hours. This would be an urgent admission, depending on what you're being told. So every hour without treatment increases the risk of septic shock. And I do include APA references in this book. I don't use APA in every single book I wrote. There's a reason for that. You can ask in the comments below if you want to detailed. Pre-admission considerations, you're the admitting nurse. One, rapid decline, timely action may deteriorate before you even get there. Look at lab values to justify the admission. They're crucial. Scrutinize the referral information for any inconsistencies. For example, you're getting the referral documentation. What happens if they're asking you to order a walker or a cane for the person that's at end-stage sepsis? Because I'd be thinking that if it's a walker or a cane, that their PPS might be 40 to 50%. And if they really have end-stage sepsis, shouldn't we be looking at 20 to 30%? That's in my mind. That's not in the book here. This is not going to spoon feed you. This is trying to get you to ask questions of yourself. In such cases, ask for a different approach. And by the way, one of the things I stress in this book, I want to be very clear. This book isn't about, I can say no to admissions. No, this book is how to think critically, because maybe we can't admit for sepsis, but maybe we can admit for something else. I can tell you how many times I get told they're 7A or B for Alzheimer's, for example, and I get there and they're a 6C. And I'm still looking at what else can I admit them for. I don't go, gee, I get a less busy day. This isn't about me. This is about how do we serve the patients on our census and how do we have people who are genuinely eligible come on service. So part of this book is like asking the questions, what else can we bring them on? When you're going from skilled nursing facility to home, looking at coordination, what meds? This is where you got to make sure that comfort meds are ordered. Nationwide, I've been hearing stories nationwide that hospices are avoiding ordering the comfort kit for the day of admission or maybe even the day after. They're just holding off. Please don't do that. We don't know when crisis will hit. Yes, it's a pain in the rear end. The medications, I think each kit costs like a couple $100. Some agencies are going to just ordering specific medications versus a complete box, so to speak. Be careful. I still remember times I go in the home and it wasn't because it wasn't ordered, the fax didn't go through, or there were other hiccups along the line, or the hospice agency went with a pharmacy that was like several counties away. Don't ask me why. And they're not there. And then I have nothing. I mean, I shouldn't say I have nothing. I always have God. But the feeling of helplessness as a nurse when families are looking for you to pull out a miracle, and God's not a vending machine. I do believe in miracles, but oh my. Durable medical equipment, arranging for timely medical equipment, all of this is part of it. Now, I've worked for different agencies. So I had some agencies where the intake team took care of everything. They took care, like they scheduled you, but they made sure you got your clinicals. They would order the DME, they would order the medications and so on. Even if you work for that type of agency, and which by the way, I like that the most for the most part, because it makes my job as an admitting nurse easier. But you should still be on your toes. Don't take for granted that they're going to do it perfectly. Teamwork makes the dream work. So ask questions, come up with a priority list based on what you're like. Did you order this? Did you order that? And then as you get to know the intake people, you can fine tune what you're asking because yeah, you know they're going to do that all the time. But in the very beginning, ask those critical questions. Get ready for the social worker to be involved. Get ready to be the chaplain to be involved. A lot of this book is how to think critically and being proactive. Also, and this is we're going to come to a close. You want to make sure from your referral sources you're getting the most up-to-date medication list. I cannot tell you how many times, whether it be a hospital to home, skilled nursing to home, assisted living to home, where on the medication list there was a chemotherapy or immunotherapy agent, and they're being admitted for cancer. So it's not that you necessarily intercept, don't send it, because depending on the situation you're in, you don't rattle the boat, so to speak. But you need to be prepared to have the conversation with the patient and family. I can't take that in order for me to do the admission. So you want to be prepared so that when you get there, it's measure twice, saw once, that you want to have the least amount of stress on you as the admitting nurse as humanly as possible. Every position in hospice is stressful. Every position. Every position is stressful. Hospice nurses, when you're admitting, you're under a lot of stress. The triage nurse coming in a crisis is I believe, even under more stress, but this isn't I'm going to be blunt, a pissing game. In order to reduce your stress, you want to be prepared as possible. And part of the reason that I wrote this book, and every single book that I wrote, is tightly focused. How do I reduce your stress? How do I help you reduce your anxiety? By giving you the tools of the trade so that you're prepared, that you're less anxious, that you can, that at one point in time, you could put this in the trunk of your car or keep it home. Or I'd recommend your nursing bag, but keep it somewhere where it's not in your way. But it gives you the mindset. So part of this chapter is talking about the mindset. I do thank you for your time. Please feel free to ask questions. You matter. You're doing a wonderful job. I want everybody in this field to bloom. This is not competition. This is about building up one another and supporting one another on our own journey. I do thank you for your time. Take care and God bless.